Awesome. So Luis, thank you for that introduction. So as Luis said, this is a case study of AI adoption at my business. So I run a marketing agency here in Boston in the States, and I'm going to jump into it here. So already had a great introduction. Thank you, Luis. My background is technical. I also work in marketing. I studied AI in grad school, so I've been watching the technology for a while now. And obviously, we've all had our ChatGPT moment. So as soon as that started to be, as soon as the technology was good enough that it's starting to become popular, we tried to figure out how to apply it at our agency. And our agency works with a bunch of clients, some of which you may have heard of. So this is all about my agency, Fire and Spark. We're a marketing agency. We focus on search marketing, the organic side, and content. The key here is that because we focus on content and SEO, our day-to-day tasks are really well suited for generative AI. So at the beginning of last year, so this is 13, 14 months ago, we decided that we wanted to improve our productivity by 50%. Now that's a huge, huge goal. And in terms, and I'm going to start with the results here. So where we ended up was at the end of the year, we measured a 30% increase in productivity by deploying AI tools and figuring out how to change our workflows and augment tasks and all that good stuff. Now, because we do client work, we measure everything we do on an hourly basis at a pretty granular level. So one wonderful thing is that we have the ability to measure how long it takes to do individual tasks and how long it takes after we apply this technology. Another thing that's important is because we're a marketing agency, we've always done QA, which is our quality control of deliverables or outputs that we send to our clients. So when we're measuring productivity improvement in terms of time savings, we're using our standard QA processes to make sure that quality is sustained as we're measuring these gains. So this is the total number of hours spent, number of hours saved in different roles, because we have strategists, account managers, analysts, and we have a link builder on our staff. But I'm going to go into this in more detail. Now, starting with the end in mind here, here's the financials. So this is potential financial impact on my agency. So without AI, and that's our financial projection for 2024. And what we're looking at is if we could save significantly on labor costs, that hits the bottom line. So this is really the thinking that is motivating it. And we achieved the 30%, but I have to say the reason why there's an asterisk on what we think we can achieve in terms of bottom line performance by fully deploying AI is that it takes work to fully deploy it. That is updating all of our training and our standard operating procedures and making sure that everybody on our team is following the new process. So that's really where we are now, making sure that all that happens. And theoretically, it'll have a big impact, and it is having an impact, but I want to achieve all of this impact. So how we did it, I'm going to go into our process here. So at a very high level, we chose use cases. I'm going to show you how. We experimented with tools. We calculated the total time that we thought we could save by applying the tools we were experimenting with to those specific use cases. Then we evaluated the effect on quality, which is our QA procedure, make sure that we're not losing quality in what we're sending out to clients. And then we updated our processes and our documentation and our training, which is what we are working on now. Now, buy-in is really important with your team. What we did a year ago was we started with some training and we invited everybody on the staff to join the AI task force internally if they wanted to. But I showed them this slide on how we would use the time savings, because I didn't want people to feel like they were going to lose their jobs or we're going to replace people. And we haven't done that. We've had some natural attrition and that, how do I say this diplomatically? That we haven't let people go. We've just had natural attrition. Let's put it that way. But I wanted the team to understand that we're going to use the extra time for more R&D and more learning. because I didn't want people to feel like they're basically experimenting with and applying AI tools to replace them. So now when we set up this internal AI task force, we asked for volunteers. It turns out that everybody wanted to be involved. Almost everybody. So we had great participation with the AI task force. The AI task force met bi-weekly, and what they were talking about was different tools and use cases and trying to figure out how they could use AI. But importantly, I did training. So because I've been playing with these tools forever, I did training in-house I had some recorded training, and we did an in-person training during one of our company retreats. And then we assigned specific use cases to specific people on the task force. The interesting thing here is like roughly half of the use cases we identified did not work out because the tool didn't work, or it was inaccurate, or we weren't able to automate everything we thought we could, or things like that. So some of it worked, some of it didn't. And then we have quarterly all hands presentations. So this is like at the end of the quarter, the folks on our AI task force that are working on implementing AI for specific use cases will present what they were able to achieve, and they'll present it with the time tracking data. So they'll have productivity and efficiency data and quality results with what they're presenting. Now, at the end of the day, like we identified 17 tasks. I'm not going to go into all of them, but we're a marketing agency and we focus on content and SEO. So we do things like write content briefs, and we refresh content on websites. We write short form copy that would be for maybe a landing page for a marketing campaign or something like that. And there's a lot in here. Emails, like sending follow-up emails after client calls, all that kind of stuff. So these are the tasks that we identified where it actually worked, and the number of hours that we spend on each individual task. So we did this so that we could prioritize them. And then going into detail on this is just 3 of those tasks. Like the first one was sending out agenda emails for client meetings. Like our agenda emails are pretty detailed with everything that's happened in their campaign, some results that we pull from analytics, and then also some follow-ups on issues, and then we're also closing the loop on some technical changes we may have made to the client's website. So we were able to use make.com for automation for that particular task. And then remember, we have QA everything, so the quality was sustained. But the amount of time we saved is 20 hours a month, just because we have so many meetings across the entire team every month. And then the next one was writing next steps emails. So these are like sending out the notes and next steps after a client call, and it's the same type of thing, pretty detailed. Email that needs to go out, Fireflies.ai is a tool that records meetings, so we can pull decisions, tasks, notes out of Fireflies. One thing that we notice with Fireflies is that its AI isn't very good. So a lot of times what I'm doing is I'll pull the transcript out of Fireflies and I'll use Claude or GPT-4 instead for something like this. And then developing content briefs. Now, we are not using AI to write content. And I always want to jump up and down and say that. That's not the best use of it. But for a content brief that will send the writer, that is an excellent, excellent use for AI, because we're basically doing research and proposing an outline for the content and all that good stuff. And we're using ChatGPT, usually with GPT-4, and then Jasper AI. Jasper.ai is one of many, many AI writing tools out there. I like Jasper because it has a brand voice feature where you can train it on the voice you want it to use, and it'll help you to write by writing in that voice. Now, moving on. So I think it's important to talk a little bit about how we're saving time with AI. Like, how does AI do it? How do they help us? There's a study that was done out of MIT, and I love the results of the study because this is exactly what I saw in my agency. But what they did was they recruited 444 college-educated professionals, and they gave half of them ChatGPT to use, and half of them were not allowed to use ChatGPT. And they gave them tasks like writing emails, writing reports, doing some analysis, because that's That's what college-educated professionals do. Now, the interesting thing was that using the group that used ChatGPT, they increased their productivity by 37%, very similar to what I saw in my agency. But critically, they spent less time writing and researching, and I'm sorry, that should say researching, and they spent more time revising content. So that might be an email or a report that they're writing. So less time on the initial first drafting, less time researching, because ChatGPT is really good with first drafting and researching, but more time revising. And let me show you this. So this is actually the results, basically the proportion of brainstorming, which is the researching up front, rough drafting, and then editing. So without ChatGPT, you can see there was a lot of time spent writing the first draft, the rough draft of the document. Now, the people who did use ChatGPT, they spent less time on the upfront research and brainstorming, less time rough drafting, which is writing the first draft of whatever it was, an email or a report or a presentation, but they spent more time editing. Now, it's super important because this is one of the ways that this gets to the mechanism that is improving productivity with these tools. And what we did is, I asked my team and I forced myself to use AI to write the first draft of everything. And when you do that, it's relatively low risk because it's not the final draft, but it forces you to figure out how to make it useful for emails, reports, presentations, everything you can imagine that you're writing. Now, how did we learned a little bit about how to choose AI use cases. The most important thing here, before I get into it, is that you're focused on business impact, and these might be business goals you have or areas of your business that would have a big impact if you could generate some efficiencies, and you're not focused on tools. So you're not looking for the shiny object tool out there that everybody's talking about, and you're trying to figure out, how do I implement this tool? You really end up going in the wrong direction. These are tasks that we do, and we thought about it in terms of what is the potential time savings, high or low, and what is the risk of failure. And failure is it doesn't work, or maybe we send a deliverable with a bunch of inaccuracies to one of our clients, which would be awful. So, on one end of that spectrum, we have tasks where we wouldn't save very much time and the risk of failure is super high, like invoicing or contract negotiations. That's really like rewriting contracts or doing legal review. But the real low-hanging fruit is when there's huge time savings but low risk of failure. And for us, it's things like writing reports for our clients, writing those content briefs, and doing copy editing and revision, stuff like that. So this is the way I would think about it. And remember, we're always checking for quality. So if the quality goes down, we consider that a failure for that particular AI pilot. Now, here's an example. What I like about this example is this is a tool that a friend of mine is using at a different agency. And at their agency, they build a lot of websites. And I love this example because this really illustrates process, how AI can change your processes. So this is a tool where what it does is you give it a prompt and it will build one of these fancy sitemaps for the website. So if you're an agency like my friend's agency that builds websites, this is saving you a ton of time. Now, what he could have done is he could have replaced the human effort at this one step of the process, the step of the process where he's basically building out a wireframe for his client to approve before they build the actual website. And they would have saved some time if they did that, but they were actually able to change their entire process, which saved them even more time. And that was a real home run. And what I want to emphasize here is if you're able to apply these AI tools in a way that changes your workflow, changes your processes in a positive way, that is how you get the most bang for the buck out of them. So his old process process was he would have a sales conversation with somebody who needs a new website. Then he would do paid discovery. So they would pay him to build the wireframe and make a number of other technical decisions. And he would basically build a big specification for the website before they built it. Then they would do the website build. So this is the old way of doing it. Now, with this AI tool, he was able to change his process, and that's why it's been a huge home run for him. So the new process, what he does is when he has that initial 30-minute sales conversation with somebody who needs a new website, he does the discovery during that 30-minute conversation. And the way he's able to do it is by asking them what they want and having the tool that I just showed you build the wireframe during that first 30-minute call. That saves him a ton of time. Not only does that, but it helps him to qualify that client much better, because he'll show it to them and say, hey, is this what you want? And they might say, yeah, great, let's build it. Or they might say, well, actually, I wanted it to look more like Facebook or something annoying like that. So it actually changes, and then he builds the website, right? So there's no discovery phase. He can vet the potential clients better. This has been a huge, huge win for him because he was thinking about how to change his process, not just how to automate one particular task in his process. And that's super important. So quickly, some learnings here before I'm done. Around training, we started our AI training at the beginning of last year for our team, so it's been a full year. We created some in-house how-to videos, or I did, and we're considering training our contractors. So if you think about it, we hire writers and a bunch of other professions, and one thing that's really annoying me is that not all of them are using these tools in the best possible way, and I want to capture those efficiencies, so we should be training our writers. And the technology is changing so quickly that you really want to focus on the use cases for AI, updating your processes, and not so much on each individual tool, because you will swap out tools as you go through this process, because it's changing so quickly. And then I already talked about process improvement, but you really want to evaluate use cases and your documented processes, not really specific software tools, or don't start there. And then processes need to change in order to get the biggest benefit from applying AI tools and deploying them in your business. And then also LLMs, and these are large language models like ChatGPT or Claude or GPT-4. They can be very unreliable in automations, because we created a lot of automations that will call ChatGPT, and my expectation was that these automations would run 100% automated without human intervention. That turned out to be a pipe dream, because when there are inaccuracies or when the large language model breaks and just gives us a bogus response, it really gums up the works. So we retooled those processes to have some human input and human review. And we're thinking, because at the beginning of last year, I was thinking, oh, how do we automate things? That was wrong-headed. Really, the way I'm thinking about it now and what's working is that we're using these tools to update processes, and we're using these tools to augment the capabilities of our staff. And that's a much more productive way to look at it. And then you have to actually use the tools to understand what their capabilities are. There's a lot of hype out there. You really can't believe it. I'm a huge AI booster, and I've benefited greatly from deploying AI tools in my business. But what I've learned through that experience is that there's a lot that still doesn't work with these tools. So it's really a process of figuring out what works, what their real capabilities are, and how you can apply those in an impactful way to the big problems that you have in your business. So start with the business impact and business problems. Oh, and then connect with me. I'm Dale at fireandspark.com. I love talking about this stuff. I do the AI training. If any of you are looking for AI training for your team to get started with this stuff, and that's it for me.
You have a deep background in AI, and its application to digital marketing strategies. How do you envision the future of AI shaping the digital marketing landscape, especially regarding SEO and content creation? And could you provide some insights on emerging trends that agencies and marketeers should prepare for to stay ahead of the curve? It's quite generic, but sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to have a huge impact on marketing in general and marketing agencies and SEO and content and the type of things that I do. We've been in SEO for a long time and it's constantly changing. So the change itself is nothing super new. But we need to figure it out, and we don't know exactly what is next in marketing and SEO and content and all that good stuff. So really what I see as the trend for marketers and agencies is to be less focused on the mechanics of implementing and delivering marketing campaigns of all types, and more focused on insights and coordinating channels and campaigns, because these tools are going to be able to do a lot of the rote implementation and button pushing, and they're going to know how to use tools and push buttons in the tools that we use now, and they'll be able to do it for us. So the service we need to offer needs to be a higher level based on insights and strategy and coordinating marketing channels.
Okay.
And Dale, I have a question for you in terms of the impact that AI bots, ChatGPT, etc., are going to have in changing consumer behavior into how we use things like Google's or Bing for searching things. So now you can ask about a comparison of products, right? You don't need to go and browse for 1 hour to make a comparison of two products. You can just ask ChatGPT to do that for you. So how do you think that is going to disrupt the advertising market?
Yeah, so we expect that people will change the way they search, exactly like you're talking about, where right now people have been trained for the last 20 years to enter keywords into Google, and Google gives them a bunch of websites. And basically Google's giving you a research project where you need to figure out which of these websites do I trust, what's the right answer, dig into it. And the dream of generative AI is that when you're searching for information or products or services, the engine will give you the answer. And we're actually pretty far away from that. We're far enough away from it. And what I mean by that is there are search engines like perplexity.ai that I use because I want to understand this stuff. And there's also Google's Search Generative Experience that gives you answers, not a list of links in a research project. But it's inaccurate enough of the time that you learn not to trust it 100%. So it's still giving you a research project, and it's not changing search behavior at the moment because people are going back to what they trust and using regular old Google. But we do expect over the coming years that they'll get better. People will search differently. Like what they'll do is they'll ask really long questions. They'll say something like, I'm going to Napa Valley next week with my family. My kids like these activities. We're staying at this hotel. What should we do that's going to be nearby? And that's the type of question you would never ask Google right now. But we expect eventually, I think it's a while out, more and more people will query like those types of complicated queries, and they'll go to other search engines, not just Google, maybe perplexity.ai, maybe ChatGPT, maybe the next version of Google to find those types of answers. But that's still a while out. We're looking at 2025 for that search behavior to change and really affect what we do.
Back to you, Robert.
That will be me then. Okay, thank you very much, Dale. Louis, I believe you have the next speaker as well. We have no other questions for Dale in the studio. Do you have, Marcus?
I am happy.
If there's one question I could ask you, Dale, is that I've seen another video of you. There's quite some content of you online. And one was that the data that any business generates, how to use that in your marketing campaign. We know how to get answers from GPT, most entrepreneurs do. But how do we actually feed in raw data? What format do we use? And what would be the first steps to engage in this kind of activity?
Yeah, this is very important because one of the downsides of using these LLMs is that they can hallucinate or give you inaccurate information. How you get around that is using it in ways where you're giving it your information and telling it only use the information I just gave you. And that could be anything. What we're using is transcripts of phone calls. And a quick example there, we recorded all of our sales calls for 2 years. So that allowed us to use AI to extract all of the questions that sales prospects have asked on a sales call and all the answers that we gave, and categorize them by stage of the sales pipeline. That was hugely, hugely helpful. Now, that's not a search use case where I'm telling ChatGPT, give me this answer. What I'm really doing is I'm giving ChatGPT a pile of transcripts and asking it to search those transcripts for questions. So it'll be much, much more accurate. And then another use case, we wrote a content strategy document. It's a 20-page document on how we're going to do content strategy for my agency. And we were able to give the strategy document that I wrote to ChatGPT and then ask it, what would these marketing experts say about this strategy? What would they add or what would they criticize, things like that. And so I love using it in that particular way. In general, every business has data and information, whether it's documents or it's in a database. And the boon here is really unstructured information. So it might be like consulting reports or call transcripts or stuff like that. But you could also plug ChatGPT into a database with more tabular data. But the key is, like, for your particular business, you know what information and data you have. And so start thinking about, well, how could I use a large language model like ChatGPT with GPT-4 to process that information in some way that's useful to the business. What large language models are good at is natural language processing. When you have documents or transcripts or web pages or something like that. Or a book that you've written, or white papers, or research articles. Like there's so much that you might have in your business that these tools can help you to process and extract some value from.
Yeah. So Dale, that was awesome. Thanks so much for your expertise. I can see the comments in the chat. People are just loving everything that you said. So thanks again for that. And thank you both, because I know it's pretty early in your time zone. So we appreciate the effort you're doing to join us here. So thanks again.